Hi, it's Andy here from Fighters Talk TV with Eddie Hearn. How you doing after yesterday?
Yeah, doing good. Looking forward to the fight. Like I just said in an interview, I mean, right or wrong, I can judge if it's a big fight or if it's a big moment by what I'm feeling.
Okay, so now we're going to come off of this show and we're going to move on to something else. What did you make of the fact that every time you say something, Big John Fury flies off the handle, yet KSI said he's going to slap his tits when he sees him?
Oh, KSI's going to slap his tits?
Apparently so.
He's brave.
Yeah.
I'm not as brave as KSI, I'm petrified. No. Do you know what, I think I watched At Home with the Furies, right? I actually really enjoyed it, and I started to realise that sometimes like clickbait and little headlines and little clips and stuff like that don't really tell the true story. So when I watched that, I couldn't help but like John Fury, right? And I couldn't help but like Tyson Fury. And I've always liked Tyson Fury. I just think he talks bollocks sometimes and doesn't always tell the truth. But maybe we're all like that. I don't know. But I think they're great. And even John Fury. I like personalities, and I think the sport, the business needs personalities.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think John Fury, this is all, Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, all right? And that's really boxing all over. So this is just a big play in the drama world of boxing, and we're all just actors in it. And without someone like John Fury, the play or the show becomes a lot more dull. You know what I mean? So the fact that he takes his shirt off and
kicking the tables up.
Yeah, but you just don't really know, it's the moment, because John Fury always takes his shirt off and goes, come on, and it's like, I would probably, for the sake of looking a little bit tough, stand there and go, come on then, let's have it, in the absolute desperate hope that he doesn't do anything. But my luck is he probably will. Do you know what I mean? So I'll be the one that goes, yeah, come on then, and he just goes bang and knocks me spark out. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know what.
Well, that would do great pay-per-view numbers.
Great, thanks a lot. Yeah. Probably die in the process, but as long as you get your views, where everyone's happy. Yeah.
Anyway, so moving on to Tyson, obviously he's got a fight against Francis Ngannou. We heard you talk yesterday. I have to agree. If you put him in with Johnny Fisher would destroy him in 3-4 rounds. Ngannou, because it's a totally different sport. But I think to get extra viewers and people into boxing, is it the crossover? Is it a step too far for you? Is it something you would do in the future? Sort of stuff.
All this stuff, I can't always sit there and say, I would never do that. There's always a deal that makes sense for a fighter. Whatever I think doesn't really matter, because you are at the responsibility of the fighter. They are the boss, they make the decisions. Francis Ngannou asked to meet me. We sat down in Las Vegas for 2 or 3 hours. Lovely man, incredible story. And he said to me, I want to fight Anthony Joshua. And I thought to myself, that's a big fight, I'm not sure how good this geezer is, but maybe that's what AJ wants to do. I don't know. I can't have that meeting and not go and talk to him about it. The next time I spoke to him, I said, I met Francis Ngannou. He wants to fight you. And he just sort of laughed and went, oh, right, yeah. And I went, obviously, what do you think? And he went, no, absolutely no interest. I want to try and win the world heavyweight title. That was the end of the conversation. So at the same time, I can't see, if AJ would have turned around and gone, I want you to explore that. How much money's in that fight? My job would be to explore that. But he just shut it down straight away. He said, no, I don't like. I just think those kind of things should happen after the career. Do you know what I mean? We see that. Floyd Mayweather was the first one really who started doing these exhibitions post-career. And I don't like them, especially when you've got the legacy of Floyd Mayweather. But you can't knock a guy for making 5 million, 10 million for turning up and having a spar for 2 or 3 rounds at the same time. But at least he's done. To go back and forward, I just feel like it's a little bit disrespectful to your legacy, because you're talking about a guy that could be unbeatable in the heavyweight division in his era, and he'd be a favourite against Usyk, and he'd be a betting favourite against AJ. So why not? And there's massive money in both fights, so why not do that? Become undisputed, beat AJ maybe in a massive British fight, and become the greatest heavyweight of our generation. He may end up doing it after Ngannou, but it's there to be done, and I don't know how much that means to him. And that's what I'm not mad about. But I also can't knock him for making 20 million, 30 million, whatever he's making, to fight a bloke that couldn't win a Southern Area title. When you actually look at it like that, how can you blame him?
No,
Right?
I don't think you can blame either for the money, can you, really,
No,
considering what they're putting up?
But when there's double the money or treble the money to fight AJ and Usyk, you'd hope that you'd go, like, all right, it's good money for him, but I really want to be undisputed. I really want to be the greatest of my era.
No,
And that's missing in sport a lot nowadays.
So that leads nicely on to the next question. What next for AJ? Is it going to be Zhang? Is it going to be...
I think we want Wilder.
Wilder?
And if we can make that fight, we don't have a fight in between. If that fight's in the air in the next week to 10 days, we may fight in December. He wants to get back to camp, he wants to stay active, but at the same time, like, we want to make the Wilder fight, so we just have to see.
Excellent, excellent. So, one quick question. I don't want to go dwell on Conor too much, because obviously we know Conor ourselves, and I just want your opinion. Why is he treated so much differently? Is it the family name to someone who's gone through the same thing before?
Family name. I think probably a little bit of the way he's handled it. I think it's me. I think it's Matchroom maybe in general. Like, it baffles me sometimes because there's other fighters out there recently that have failed tests. No one's even said anything. I haven't seen one article. I haven't seen one tweet. Do you know what I mean? Like, Conor has literally been every day for over a year. Like,
yeah.
And you have to, but people, you never really ask yourself why. And he hasn't played it very well at times, granted. But he's also gone through every process he's been asked to go through, and we are where we are. And there's no, like, you know, I still have arguments with journalists, and they go, like, they tweet, well, he's not been cleared. Like, I don't understand. If you have your suspension lifted, you are cleared to fight, right? There's no, now, if you think that you didn't like the process in which that happened, no problem. But you can't ignore the fact that he went to a trial and won, and had his suspension lifted and was cleared to box. And for a journalist to turn around and go, he's not cleared to box though, is he? Yes. No, but he's not, is he? You know, he hasn't cleared his name. I said, but he's gone to the trial and he's won. Yeah, but what happened at the trial? I don't even know, I wasn't even there. But you asked him to go to the trial, he went to it and won. Can we acknowledge that? And for all these commissions that phoned up Robert Smith and said, can you let us know if he's not cleared to box? Because we won't let him box. He couldn't say it. Because he knows he's cleared to box. As much as it pisses him off. And it's like, he is. So, like, but that bothers me that it's not even acknowledged. It's not even like, he won the case, he's cleared to box. I'm not happy about the way it went, but he won the case. That I have no problem with. But then yesterday, you see the Boxing News put out a story from Thomas Hauser, which was so full of inaccuracies and, you know, like, so defamatory towards us and Conor Benn, that in the end, I just thought, I've had enough. We're going to contact them, and I love the Boxing News, but you can't write an article with a bloke who's turned into a little bit of a fantasist with an agenda without even fact-checking it with us. You know, Conor Benn hasn't had any testing for his fight coming up. What are you talking about? Don't you watch my interviews? He's had multiple tests from VADA, random tests in the build-up to that fight from 12 weeks back. Oh, Conor Benn gave his scientific to UCAD and it was just, you know, slung out. What are you talking about? No, they didn't. And you've printed that. People read that. And then people tweet me going, this is a disgrace. He never had testing for that fight. What? So we had to go and tell them, and they had to apologise and say it was completely... But it's like, you're really up against it a lot of the time. And I don't like to say there's an agenda, because I think people think, oh, you're just like... But I don't know what else it can be. Like, you wouldn't have this same energy for anybody else. So therefore, is that not an agenda? Like, you know, so I don't know.
Well, thankfully, Fighters Talk TV, we're not going to argue. We'll leave that to Simon Jordan and Talk Sport.
It
makes for great.
You know, if you've got a point, if you've got a question, as you know, I've never come to you and said, don't ask that. You know, Matty Lawrence would never come to you. You can interview Eddie, but don't say about it. You can ask me anything you want about it.
Well, to be honest, we've never been told not to say anything.
No one has been.
That's it.
And that's how it works. But, you know, at the same time, all you want, I don't mind tough questions. I just want people to acknowledge that he's been through. He hasn't ducked any process. He hasn't said, oh, I'm not doing UCAD. Oh, I'll just go with a WBC ruling. Like, he did it because everyone said you have to go through UCAD. He did it and he won.
Well, fortunately, we got to speak to Conor off camera, and what this lad has gone through personally is a lot more traumatic than people believe. And as I said to him, when you're talking to people like Piers Morgan, no disrespect to Piers, but they edit everything out, so you're not given the chance to say what you want to say. I said, but sometimes you're rushing into a conversation, Conor. And he was saying, well, yeah, I'm fed up with arseholes, I think was what he said to me. So I said, oh, you know, just take your time and actually get your story right before you go out.
You've got a 10-minute slot on a show like that, do you know what I mean? And eventually he will have to come out and do. But also, how long? Like, after a while, this has been coming up to 18 months of his life. Like, it's a long period of your life. And I think that people talk about, I don't want to harp on too much about mental health, but the way people are feeling. But do they really care? Do you know what I mean? Like, no one's actually really picked up the phone to him and gone, are you all right? Like, just like, other than very close people around him. So, do you really care? It's like people on social media that just make stuff up or just slander or just attack people all day. You know, really harass them all day. No one really cares, do they? Until something happens to someone, or someone has to go and get some help, or someone does something more serious, and then everyone goes, oh, this is terrible. We all really need to be nice to each other, don't we? But do you really feel that way? So,
yeah, from the very start.
Social media is so toxic, right? And he's had to put up with a hell of a lot. Whether you think he's innocent or guilty, trust me, he's had it tough.
Well, when we were talking with him, he said his father-in-law's a truck driver and he's the most opinionated man in the world, and that don't help.
No, of course not. No.
So, anyway, going on, arguably one of the biggest fights in British boxing today is Conor Benn, Chris Eubank. That would be wonderful to hold it at Wembley, do a big, massive event behind it, but how much of a pain in the rear end of the British Boxing Board of Control going to be? Is he going to go for his licence or just ask permission to box?
Yeah, he could do either. I mean, from a rules perspective, and from a legal perspective, it's very difficult when you win the case and you're not suspended for the board to say no. They really don't want to say yes, but very difficult for them to say no. So we have to look at the options of the site fee deal versus doing it in the UK. Then we have to speak to the board and say, we'd like to stage this fight December 23 in the UK. Then they'll make their decision. The thing that's been frustrating with the board is we've asked to sit down with them on numerous occasions to talk through this, and it's just, no, talk to our look like, you know, there's no. And when he wins the appeal, if there ever is an appeal, it's like, oh, what are you going to do then? You can't. You know, if he wins the appeal, which we know he wins the appeal, you can't not license him. It's actually legally impossible. So, what, you know, like, they should be getting the advice to know they ain't going to win the appeal. They can't. So, anyway, yeah.
And save all that. So, one last thing on Conor before we go. He's mentioned about Terence Crawford.
Yeah.
How much of that do you think is advisable? Would you be advising that?
Anybody, right? The two toughest fights out there for him right now, Terence Crawford and Boots Ennis. He takes both of those fights tomorrow. I don't think he's ready yet for Terence Crawford, certainly. Boots, you know, I mean, look, Boots has never been in too deep, but he's an outstanding fighter. Conor has just turned 27, I believe, yesterday. So, you know, he's coming off a tough run. Let's try and land this fight and then move into world title contentions, maybe back at 47. You may end up seeing him at 54, but two tough fights. I much prefer the Chris Eubank fight.
Absolutely, from a financial point of view, it's going to make sense. Legendary status, also fathers and everything else. So, Billy Joe Saunders, what next?
Looking at December, I've got a call with him today. I think a run out in December and then look to headline in a big fight in the spring.
Excellent. We look forward to his return, obviously, after the damage by Canelo was quite severe. And moving on lastly to Canelo or Charlo, who you got?
I think Canelo wins. I think he looks good. I mean, there is an argument that after Bivol and Golovkin and Ryder, is he on the decline? He had an injury, he had an operation. I think you'll see a good performance from him. I think he wins the fight by late stoppage.
Fantastic.